Hello everyone and welcome back to What's Up, your monthly guide to the sky. We are currently in the month of May and I would like to talk about 4 different events that will be taking place this month, including the total lunar eclipse. So let's get started. The first event that I have for you guys is the Lyra meteor shower. The Lyra meteor shower will be active from May 3rd to May 14th, producing its peak rate of meteors around May 8th. Over this period, there will be a chance of seeing Lyra meteor showers whenever the shower's radiant point, which is in the constellation Lyra, is above the horizon, with the number of visible meteors increasing the higher the radiant point is in the sky. For Moorhead, the radiant point is circumpolar, which means it is always above the horizon and the shower will be active throughout the night. The radiant point is the highest in the sky after dawn, at around 6 o'clock a.m. Central Daylight Time, and so the shower is likely to produce its best displays shortly before dawn and when its radiant point is highest. At this time, the Earth's rotation turns Moorhead to face optimally toward the direction of the incoming meteors, maximizing the number that rain vertically downwards, producing short trails close to the radiant point, which is in the constellation Lyra. At other times, there will be fewer meteors burning up over Moorhead, but those that do will tend to enter the atmosphere at an oblique angle, producing long-lived meteors that may traverse a wide area of the sky before completely burning up. The shower is expected to reach peak activity at around 11 o'clock Central Daylight Time on May 8, 2021, and so the best displays might be seen before dawn and after dusk on May 8th. At its peak, the shower is expected to produce a nominal rate of around 3 meteors per hour. However, this hourly rate is calculated assuming a perfectly dark sky and that the radiant of these showers are situated directly overhead. In practice, any real observing site will fall short of these ideal conditions. The number of meteors you are likely to see is thus lower than this. From Moorhead, the radiant of the shower will appear at a peak altitude of 86 degrees above the horizon, and on the basis of this, we estimate that you may be able to see up to 2 meteors per hour at the shower's peak. The shower will peak close to a new moon, and so moonlight will present minimal interference with the shower. And just a reminder from my previous videos, to see the most meteors, the best place to look is not directly at the radiant itself, but at any dark patch of sky which is around 30 to 40 degrees away from it. It is at around this distance from the radiant that the most meteors will be seen. So the second and third events are happening on the same day, and it has to do with the same object, which is Mercury. And the events are when Mercury is at the highest altitude in the evening sky and when it's at its greatest elongation. So these will both be taking place on Monday, May 17th, and Mercury will reach its highest point in the sky in its April-June 2021 evening apparition. Mercury will fade rapidly towards the end of the apparition as it heads towards inferior conjunction, when it will pass between the Earth and the Sun. At inferior conjunction, the planet turns its unilluminated side towards the Earth, and so appears as a thin, barely illuminated crescent. Since Mercury can only ever be observed in twilight, it is particularly difficult to find it when it is in a thin crescent phase. Thus, it will be significantly easier to see it in the days before it reaches its greatest point in the sky rather than the days after. Mercury's orbit lies closer to the Sun than the Earth's, meaning it always appears close to the Sun and is lost in the Sun's glare much of the time. It is observable for only a few weeks each time it reaches its greatest separation from the Sun, which is referred to as the greatest elongation. These apparitions repeat roughly once every 3 to 4 months, taking place alternately in the morning and evening skies, depending on whether Mercury lies to the east of the Sun or to the west. When it lies to the east, it rises and sets a short time after the Sun and is visible in early evening twilight. When it lies to the west of the Sun, it rises and sets a short time before the Sun and is visible shortly before sunrise. This variability over the course of the year is due to a combination of two factors. The first factor is the inclination of the ecliptic to the horizon. At all times, Mercury lies close to a line across the sky called the ecliptic. This line traces the path that the Sun takes through the zodiacal constellations every year and shows the plane of the Earth's orbit around the Sun. When Mercury is widely separated from the Sun, it is separated from it along the line of the ecliptic. But at different times of the year, the ecliptic meets the horizon at different angles at sunset. This means that Mercury appears at different altitudes above the horizon at different times of the year, even if its separation from the Sun is the same. If the ecliptic meets the horizon at a shallow angle, then Mercury has to be very widely separated from the Sun to appear much above the horizon. Conversely, if the ecliptic is almost perpendicular to the horizon, Mercury may appear much higher in the sky, even if it is actually much closer to the Sun. At sunset, the ecliptic makes its steepest angle to the horizon at the spring equinox, in March in the northern hemisphere and in September in the southern hemisphere. Conversely, it meets the horizon at its shallowest angle at the autumn equinox. Because the seasons are opposite in the northern and southern hemispheres, a good apparition of Mercury in one hemisphere will usually be poorly placed in the other. The second factor is Mercury's elliptical orbit. Mercury is unusual among the planets for having a significantly non-circular orbit, which varies in its distance from the Sun by 52% between its closest approach and greatest distance. This means that Mercury's separation from the Sun at greatest elongation varies. So, if Mercury appears in the evening sky in mid-September or in the morning sky in mid-March, then it appears more widely separated from the Sun than usual. Specifically, at each apparition, Mercury reaches a separation from the Sun of between 18 and 28 degrees. During its April-June 2021 apparition, it will reach a maximum separation of 22 degrees to the Sun's east at greatest elongation. So these two effects are of similar magnitude, although the inclination of the ecliptic to the horizon is the more significant. They conspire to make Mercury much easier to observe from the southern hemisphere than from the north. The fourth and final event that I would like to talk to you about is the total lunar eclipse, and this will be taking place on Wednesday, May 26th. The moon will pass through the Earth's shadow between 4:45 a.m. and 7:52 a.m. Central Daylight Time, creating a total lunar eclipse. The eclipse will be visible at any location where the moon is above the horizon at the time, including from Oceania, the Americas, and Eastern and Southeast Asia. It will not be visible from Moorhead since the moon will be beneath the horizon at the time. The total eclipse will last from 6:12 a.m. until 6:26 a.m. The moon will be partially eclipsed between 4:45 a.m. and 7:52 a.m. Eclipses of the moon are easy to watch with the unaided eye. A modest pair of binoculars will give a superb view of the moon's surface, but they are not required. Unlike solar eclipses, lunar eclipses are entirely safe to look at without the need to look through any kind of filter. They occur whenever the Earth passes between the moon and the Sun, such that it obscures the Sun's light and casts a shadow onto the moon's surface. When the moon's disk lies entirely in shadow, it often takes on a spectacular reddish-brown color, as some of the Sun's red light is bent around the edge of the Earth's globe by its atmosphere. The eclipse will begin at 3:48 a.m., when the moon first enters a region of the Earth's shadow called the penumbra. As a result, the moon's brightness will begin to dim, as it is less strongly illuminated by the Sun, but it will still remain illuminated. At 4:45 a.m., the edge of the moon's disk will enter the Earth's umbra. As an increasing fraction of the moon's face creeps into the Earth's umbra, we see our planet's circular shadow sweep across the face of the moon. Eventually, the moon will pass entirely within the Earth's umbra at 6:12 a.m., and the total eclipse will begin. Lunar eclipses occur when the Sun, Earth, and Moon are aligned in a straight line, so that the Earth passes between the Sun and the Moon and casts a shadow onto the latter surface. Each time the Moon orbits the Earth, it passes almost opposite to the Sun in the sky as it reaches full moon. If the Moon orbited the Earth in exactly the same plane that the Earth orbits the Sun, the Earth would pass between the Sun and Moon and create a lunar eclipse at full moon every month. In fact, the Moon's orbit is tipped up at an angle of 5 degrees relative to the Earth's orbit around the Sun. This means that the alignment of the Sun-Earth-Moon line at full moon usually isn't exact. In the diagram, the grid represents the plane of the Earth's orbit around the Sun. As it circles the Earth, the Moon passes through its Earth-Sun plane twice each month, at the points on the left and right labeled as nodes. A lunar eclipse happens only when one of these node crossings happens to coincide with a full moon. This happens roughly once every 6 months, usually 2 weeks before or after a solar eclipse. Eclipses of the Moon are visible anywhere where the Moon is above the horizon at the time. Since the geometry of the lunar eclipses require that the Moon is directly opposite the Sun in the sky, the Moon can be seen above the horizon anywhere where the Sun is beneath the horizon. So this is a map that's showing where the eclipse will be visible. You can see where the whole eclipse will be visible, where the eclipse will be visible at moonset, at moonrise, and where it won't be visible. So it looks like half of the United States won't be able to see the full eclipse, or most of the eclipse at all, unfortunately. Thank you all for watching. Please don't forget to follow MSUM on all of our social medias. And if you have any questions or anything you would like to know more about, please save them in the comments. Cannot talk today, which is really bad when you're doing a podcast. But anyway, if you have anything you'd like to know more about, please leave them in the comments and I will try to get to them as soon as I can. And until next time, I hope you all enjoyed getting to know what's up.